Hello, I'm George Siougas, the writer-director of the short film, The One-Note Man. My desire to tell stories, that never stops. And the form really doesn't matter. So I'll tell a story anywhere, anyway, and anywhere I can. Of course, I love cinema. I love movies. I grew up on movies. And I love the cinematic language in the way it's interesting and just immersive as an experience. I'm currently involved with a couple of feature films, but that never stops. You know, it's the desire to tell stories, really.
Once upon a Christmas time, there was a musical man who lived a careful life.
So The One-Note Man is based on a cartoon strip drawn in 1921 by an artist called H.M. Bateman. And Bateman was the first artist to draw a cartoon with no dialogue, with no bubbles. So he told the story completely visually. So I became aware of this cartoon strip, which was on the funnies on the paper at the time, called The One-Note Man. And it just depicts this guy's routine as a musician who plays a wind instrument. And he wakes up in the morning, has his breakfast, reads the paper, jumps on the bus, goes to the Albert Hall, sits at his place in the orchestra, waits for his cue. He's cued, he plays one note, and then he walks out. He asks permission to walk out. He walks out, back on the bus, back home, eats his dinner, and goes to bed. And that was the cartoon. But it wasn't a movie yet. Because, you know, I always ask the 4 key questions. Those are, what does the hero want? Why does he want it? What happens if he doesn't get it? And what are the obstacles preventing him from getting them? So in order to answer those questions and make this great idea into a dramatic film, I came up with the love story. So what does he want? Well, he wants the girl. Why does he want it? Well, because he's lonely. It's Christmas and he's lonely. What happens if he doesn't get it? Well, he'll be lonely next Christmas as well, and that sucks. And what are the obstacles? Well, he only has one note in his disposal, in his arsenal, to communicate to her. Teamed up with Michael Stevenson and Luke Carroll of Cusp films. And off we went to find the budget and finance it. The first bit of money came in from Ian McKellen, because he has a foundation and he supports the arts in general. Of course, it was a no-brainer to ask him to also be a part of the film. And he so generously lended us his voice for the voiceover. You know, after I shot the film, I came up with the idea of the narrator, a sort of the grandfather telling the story to, you know, his grandchild.
Once upon a Christmas time, there was a musical man who lived a carefree life. Each day was different from the next, and that was just how he liked it.
I love music, and music has been a part of my life forever, and I'm especially fond of soundtracks. Movie soundtracks, you know, back in the day I had a ton of CDs, and I realized very early that you can enjoy the music, the soundtrack, without watching the film. But you can't watch the film without the soundtrack. Music is a tool to communicate feelings, and sometimes even replaces dialogue. Music takes over. And that whole idea, inspired also by H.M. Bateman and his storytelling decision to not include dialogue, I thought, well, how far can I get? Can I write 3 pages of this without any dialogue? The whole script was written that way. And in the end, in that scene when the violinist notices the bassoonist they finally converse in music. Stephen Warbeck, our Academy Award-winning composer, essentially translated what they were saying to each other musically. So I actually wrote the dialogue, what I wanted them to say to each other. I wrote it down as a scene of dialogue for Stephen to translate it into music. I grew up on Disney films. When I was a kid, the first film I watched, I must have been 4 years old, was The Rescuers. And ever since, I've watched every single Disney film and every single Pixar film. And I'm so inspired by those amazing artists that are able to move us with drawings that are projected 24 frames a second, and they create movement that way. And these amazing artists have managed to draw us into their world and make us cry and laugh. And that whole art of animation, I absolutely adore. I always saw this film as a sort of live-action animation film. It could have so easily been a Pixar film. In order to get this film shot in 5 days, because we had little time to shoot it, I storyboarded the entire film from beginning to end, which is something I always do, not so much with the dramas, but definitely when several departments need to be on the same page. But the scene of One-Up Man falls in love. So he's about to leave, and for the first time, because he's been delayed by a little accident, a thread gets caught on his bassoon, and he's delayed. He doesn't leave the theater when he used to, but he leaves a few seconds later, and he hears a part of the piece which he'd never heard before. And that part is an amazing violin solo played by this wonderful Louisa Klein, beautiful violinist. And he falls in love. So I needed to have enough music. I needed Stephen to write enough music to fit the shots I needed to tell the story. And the only way to do that was to animate the scene. In order to say to Stephen, I need 24 seconds of solo, not 20, not 32, 24 seconds exactly of solo, so Stephen knew exactly how much to write. So it was a really close collaboration. And Stephen, I often say I cast Stephen because music is a third character in this film. I'm very calm on set. It's the happiest place on earth for me. I know what I want, and I know how to communicate that to the team. I'm very well prepared, but I'm also ready to throw the plan away if something happens. Actors come up with something far better than what I've thought at home, and I throw the plan away and go with their suggestion. But with a film like this, because there was such little time, we're shooting 40 setups a day, which, as you know, is a lot. And we just didn't have time to discuss much. This one was, a bit more, right, let's execute the plan than usual. The best moment for me is when Matt had lit the set and we had planned it on paper. We knew there were going to be shafts, and the audience came in. We had an audience, just people helped us out on a Sunday. They came over with their kids and helped us, and they sat there. And they were my first audience. And We played the scene as, from beginning to end, and I could tell the audience were involved. They actually started clapping before I tell them where to clap, and oh my God, they clapped at exactly the right moment. So this collective consciousness, came alive as it does with an audience. And that's why the cinema experience is so important. Is that collective experience when we all go and watch a movie together and get out of our house and go into the theater and pay money, and we all sit there and enjoy something collectively. When we won Best Film at the very first festival we submitted, which was the Rhode Island Film Festival. Rita Marcacci and Josh Friedman were there, our US partners. And they called me and said, oh my God, the reception to this film is just something extraordinary. People are in tears, they're clapping, they're laughing. It's really extraordinary. And the actual film festival also came back to me and said, hey, we haven't had a screening like this. It was absolutely sensational. So, and we won Best Film and became Oscar qualified. And that was the first time I thought, wow, maybe this is communicating. Maybe we've got something here. Just do it. Don't talk about it. And don't wait for the ideal conditions to come your way. You make that happen with whatever tools you have. You can shoot a movie on your iPhone. You can have a skeleton crew of 5 people and shoot a movie. So it's a lot easier to do it than it used to be. You have a story to tell, do it, tell it, and find your own voice. Never quit, never stop. Perseverance, I think, is what gets us there.